Well, soon we may just find ourselves in total darkness, given the rate at which the country's electricity crisis is worsening. We now find ourselves without power for hours on end.
And former executive manager of Eskom. He could face up to stage 11 blackouts unless Eskom improves the performance of power stations.
Senior members of President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet to 4 criminal cartels operating inside Eskom. Well, let's try and piece this information together.
But the target is SAA, is Eskom, is Dinel. They want to buy those things, and the Ruperts will buy them, the Oppenheimers will buy them.
I told them getting rich is easy. I mean, any fool can get rich. When a man becomes wealthy, he has to deal with the problems of freedom. All the choices he could possibly want.
Here in South Africa, we really have our fair share of fraud and embezzlement cases in the political and business worlds. And by fair share, I mean a very huge, mind-blowing share.
I need more money, Steve. Billy, I need more money. We don't have any.
From STEINHOFF to forex scams, unregulated brokerage firms, Herbalife pyramid schemes, the Gupta family, the stellebosch mafia, and yet even amongst these Titanic stories, the story of Eskom is miles ahead most business failure and stolen money cases I've heard. Fraud, sabotage, political chaos, money-hungry politicians, an international embezzlement case in the 80s, embezzlement and fraud cases in recent years, foreign governments implicated, the presidency implicated, ministers actively participating in illegal activity, never-ending court cases that the public doesn't give a damn about. The rabbit hole goes on and on and on. From being a massive company experiencing rapid growth in the 60s and 80s, growing into the largest power supply in the entire continent of Africa, with 204 billion revenue generated in 2021, but still ended the year with a massive loss of 18.9 billion rands. This has to be one of the biggest corporate debt spirals in the entire continent of Africa. You would actually think that's the end since this is a government-run company. Surely no one will be dumb enough to steal money from the nation's resources and put millions of lives at risk. Yeah, right. I have to admit that's wishful thinking even coming from me. Look at me finding large obvious trails of fraud and embezzlement cases that still plague the company to this day. Emphasis on obvious. From the 1981 case where a chief accountant embezzled 164 million rands, only to end up getting caught by the United States government. These endless matters I found while diving into this rabbit hole of endless research showed me how all these matters have led to the current energy crisis and have completely put a pause on decades of growth that sadly happened only during the apartheid regime. For perspective on this entire Eskom downfall, let me try to paint the picture for you and help you understand these matters from the foundation. Electricity is measured in watts. A megawatt is 1 million watts and a kilowatt is 1000 watts. 1 megawatt can power a lot more than just one household. It's said to be roughly enough electricity for about 750 homes. So, for 3 decades between 1960 and 1990, the South African government made rapid expansions with Eskom reaching power generations of up to 40,000 megawatts. That's enough power to give more than 30 million homes electricity, not 30 million people, but 30 million homes. A single home can house up to 5 people. That is some remarkable numbers for an African company in the 80s and 90s. That's the rate at which Eskom was expanding. Truly some passionate driven progress, honestly speaking. Some of you will call this research an abomination, but bear in mind, my friends, this is just me following a clear trail of money and facts. Facts have no room for feelings. With such delicate matters that are affecting more than 60 million lives in the country, with a business story of this magnitude, there is no other place to begin than at the very beginning. Now then, rewinding the hands of time back to the times before World War II, before the birth of electricity in our beautiful country of South Africa. Eskom is a South African electricity public utility that was established in 1923 as the Electricity Supply Commission, or Eskom with a C. Eskom represents South Africa in the Southern African power pool and is the largest producer of electricity in Africa. It's also listed among the top utilities in the world in terms of generation capacity and sales. Eskom is the largest of South Africa's state-owned companies. Before the creation of electricity, or before the creation of Eskom, the provision of electricity was dominated by municipalities and private companies. The city of Kimberley was one of the first users of public electricity when it installed electric streetlights in 1882 with the goal to reduce crime at night. This was followed by Cape Town in 1895 with the construction of the Graph Electric Lighting Works for powering 775 streetlights approximately. Eskom was founded by the Electricity Act of 1922, which allowed the South African Electricity Control Board to appoint Hendrik Johan van der Biel as chairman. The company changed its name by combining the two acronyms in its previous name, Eskom with a C and Evcom with a K and V, putting the two together in 1987 to become known as Eskom with a K. The Electricity Act stated that Eskom could only sell electricity at a certain affordable cost and was exempted from tax, with the company initially raising capital through the issuing of debentures and then later issuing state-guaranteed loans instead. The coal-fired Kongela Power Station in Durban and Salt River Power Station in Cape Town were the first power stations built by Eskom, both completed in 1928. One of Eskom's first power plants was a coal-fired 128 megawatt station in Witbank, completed in 1935 to provide power to the mining industry. The power plant was built and run in partnership with the private companies called Victoria Falls and Transvaal Power Company. These two owned a number of other power plants across the country, but thanks to state support, Eskom was able to buy out the Victoria Falls and Transvaal Power Company in 1948 for £14.5 million. Now that I've gone through the early days of public electricity in South Africa and the foundation of Eskom, next on my quest following the money trail and seeking answers, let's now visit the first expansion that has gone missing in piles of negative information. From 1960 to 1990, Eskom increased its power production capacity from 4,000 megawatts to a staggering 40,000 megawatts so as to keep up with the rapid economic growth in the 1960s and 1970s. You would actually be shocked at how beautiful South Africa looked even back in the 80s. I'm sure a few of you have heard something Americans talk about called the Roaring 20s. The Roaring 20s is like a golden age of growth in the American economy just before the Great Depression of 1929. What Americans call the Roaring 20s, well, you can compare that to the growth of South Africa in the 60s and 70s. You could say we had the Roaring 70s, excluding the shitty part where we had segregation due to the apartheid regime. Anyway, my focus is the economics and the business side of this matter. I'm sure you now get an idea of how rapidly we were growing as a nation during that period. Eskom established a number of standardized coal-fired power plants that could produce power at a very low cost. These power plants were known as the six-pack. For the 6 large generator units they were designed to accommodate, not the six-pack you were actually thinking of. In 1974, the company was instructed to start work on the Koeberg nuclear power station to both provide power to Cape Town and help facilitate the South African government's nuclear program. The nation was experiencing rapid growth and things were really looking good, but as with most fairy tale stories, there's always a stain that manages to stick up. With this stain, there's somewhat of a lesson for our modern day government and us as citizens.
Obtained by Daily Maverick, linking 2 senior members of President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet to 4 criminal cartels operating inside Eskom.
And the gearbox fails, and somebody who's got a maintenance contract is then called out. But the individual who committed the act of sabotage, because that's what it is not the kingpin.
We expect too much from these inquiries, and I just fear that it's going to be once again a bit of political jockeying for the best type of question, as opposed to really getting out evidence that will help us to open a case, not to resolve corruption allegations by data. Here's a big challenge.
It proves that Eskom theft has nothing to do with skin color or the fact that there's a black man instead of a white man now in charge of governing the nation. The incident I'm about to share with you closely resembles what is happening with Eskom now, but visibly there's a difference in that the specific incident I'm about to tell you with didn't affect the growth of Eskom as a company. In fact, Eskom actually kept growing rapidly. So let's talk about the incident, the 1981 case that reached as far as the United States. In 1981, Eskom was involved in one of its first large financial scandals when an assistant chief accountant at the time was caught embezzling 8 million rands from the company. That's roughly 164 million rands in 2018. Even during the apartheid regime, there was someone stealing money from Eskom. But the whole point of this story is to point out one simple fact. Even with funds being stolen from the company, it wasn't being run into the ground because the government in charge was motivated, hungry, and striving for the growth of the company and the state as a whole. I'm just saying this as unbiased as I can. As I said earlier, I'm dealing with facts and following the money trail. This is what a Washington Post reported on an article in 1985. A New York bank account central to an embezzlement scandal unfolding in South Africa has been linked to payments made to American nuclear reactor technicians working illegally in the country. The tale includes bank accounts in Bangkok and Vienna, a posh apartment in Monte Carlo, a suitcase full of Swiss francs, mysterious telephone calls from Southern California, and, indirectly, 38 Americans now working illegally at a South African state-owned power company. The Washington Post reported that US officials believed at least some of these skilled American nuclear reactors were violating federal nuclear non-proliferation laws by working for South Africa's atomic power industry without authorization from the Secretary of Energy. Imagine the shock on my face when I realized that even during apartheid, Eskom was facing such a huge, high-profile case, but at the end, growth still prevailed.
By our presence here, and by our celebrations in other parts of our country and the world, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty.
Following democratic elections in 1994 and the start of the Mandela government, the company changed its focus to giving electricity to previously neglected homes and to provide electricity at a very low cost for the sake of growing the economy. Following the passing of the 1998 Eskom Amendment Act, the new government's power to influence company policy and investment decisions were increased massively. This is the time when the nation's ruling government stopped treating Eskom like a multi-billion rand company. The government tried to privatize Eskom in the late 1990s during the administration of President Thabo Mbeki. Eskom requested for funds to build new stations and sadly they were denied.
And she says, but Andre, you are naive. You are not showing the comrades a way to eat. That is the explanation, that there are so many vested interests.
This is a point in time I like to call the turning point, and boy did it turn for the worst. After leaving presidency, Thabo Mbeki would later state in December 2007 that rejecting to invest in Eskom's continued growth was a huge error that would result in adverse effects for the South African economy. And boy was Thabo Mbeki right. Mbeki realized exactly what I realized as I was doing my research. The downfall of Eskom began because of a government that lacked ambition, no hunger for further growth of the company, and no hunger for expansion. They stopped managing Eskom in a similar way that other billion-dollar companies are handled. Thabo Mbeki tried to bring back ambition, and his efforts really go unnoticed in our history. He tried to expand Eskom, and if they just believed in him, we wouldn't actually have the problems that we are facing right now, at least not to the current extent. January 2008, Eskom introduces load shedding. For those who are not in South Africa, load shedding is basically planned rolling blackouts based on a rotating schedule. Following the national power shortage in 2007, Eskom embarked on an aggressive electricity production expansion program during the administration of the one and only President Jacob Zuma. The Zuma administration decided to focus expansion efforts on building additional large-scale six-pack coal-fired power plants. In 2016, Eskom revealed it intended to pursue a nuclear solution for the country's energy shortage. According to projections from late 2016, the use of nuclear power would provide over 1,000 gigawatts of power by 2050, In preparation, the company launched a training program for 100 technicians, engineers, and artisans that would certify them as nuclear operators. In January 2018, Eskom's acting chief financial officer stated that the company could not afford a new build, following a 34% drop in profits due to declining sales and increasing financing costs. The government stated that it would proceed with the plan, but at a more slow rate, after stealing a few funds here and there, of course. In 2017, Eskom was the focus of a major corruption scandal involving the Gupta family and the administration of then President Jacob Zuma. Eskom was forced to suspend its chief financial officer Anaj Singh in July 2017 when the Development Bank of South Africa threatened to recall a 15 billion rand loan if no action was taken against Eskom officials, including Singh, of course, who were involved in corruption allegations involving the Gupta family. The accountancy body suspended Singh's membership in 2019, pending the outcome of the hearing. It's funny that it's called a hearing, because I ain't hearing anything about Singh being arrested, because he's clearly shady. But for the case of safety, let me say allegedly. Allegedly, he's very shady. Hey, so that's the end when it comes to this Eskom. That's the end when it comes to this Eskom video, basically, guys. I've been spending hours recording this video, and I hope you guys are actually going to like it. And I don't think I'm gonna edit this audio specifically because it's been like 4 or 5 days since I started editing this specific Eskom video, and wow, I think my next videos will be like 7 to 8 minutes long or 7 to 9 minutes long. They won't be that long until we've got some subscribers, because right now we are sitting at a beautiful 0 subscribers. So if you're watching this video, I appreciate the fact that you've reached this far. And stay tuned for the next videos as well. I'll be creating a lot more content. We'll be speaking about a lot more issues, interesting issues, and I'll do my best to make sure the videos are like 7 to 9 minutes long. So stay tuned.